Trust is delicate, a sacred thread that binds hearts and minds in connection. When it's broken, something within us shatters too, leaving behind a hollow ache where faith and security once lived. It's easy to spiral into anger, resentment, or even despair. But the path taught by Buddhist wisdom offers a gentler, more empowering alternative. When someone betrays your trust, the first and most vital step is not revenge or confrontation. It is to allow yourself to feel, to acknowledge the waves of emotion washing over you without being swept away by them. When betrayal strikes, the heart instinctively clenches. We might feel rage clawing at our chest, sorrow dampening every breath, or confusion clouding our vision. But reacting from this emotional storm often leads to regret and deepens the wounds. Instead, Zen teaches us to observe these emotions like leaves floating down a river. We don't have to clutch them. We don't have to act on them. We simply watch and wait, let them pass. Through mindfulness, you grant yourself the grace of time. You pause, you breathe, you sit with the pain not to indulge it, but to understand it. Like a master potter shaping wet clay, this pause molds your inner world into something steadier, something stronger. In this stillness, clarity arises. You start to realize that your emotions are valid, but they do not define you. They are passing guests, not permanent residents. Through daily meditation, silent reflection, or writing in a journal, you give your pain room to exist, to speak, and ultimately to dissolve. This is not weakness, this is power, choosing conscious awareness over unconscious reaction. And only from that awareness can true healing begin. Once you've sat with your pain and allowed it space to breathe, the second step emerges naturally: communication. Not every betrayal needs confrontation. But when the wound runs deep, healing often asks us to speak. Buddhism does not demand silence in suffering. It encourages compassion in dialogue. That means finding the strength to face the person who hurt you with honesty and calm. This conversation isn't about blame, it's about truth. You choose a moment when your emotions are settled, your mind clear, and then with grace you express the weight you've been carrying. You do not attack. You speak of how their actions rippled through your heart, what it felt like to be let down, what you hoped for, what broke. These are your truths, shared not as weapons, but as lanterns. You hold them up so that the other person may see what they could not before. And then you listen, not to argue, not to defend, but to truly hear. Active listening is not easy. It demands presence. You look into their eyes not to judge, but to understand. You set your ego aside, allowing silence to stretch where needed. You might hear sorrow, you might hear excuses, you might hear nothing at all. Whatever you hear, your task is not to fix them, but to understand them, and more importantly, to remain rooted in your own clarity. If you sense sincere remorse, a desire to change, this becomes the bridge toward reconciliation. But if the words ring hollow or the pattern repeats, you begin to see the truth for what it is. Either way, speaking your truth allows you to unburden your spirit and regain your power. It is an act of liberation, not for them, but for you. But communication alone cannot rebuild a house that has burned to the ground. There must be new boundaries, clear, firm, and sacred. Buddhism teaches us that self-respect is not prideful, it's necessary. Just as we protect our homes from storms, we must protect our hearts from repeated harm. After trust is broken, it's essential to define what is acceptable and what is not. Boundaries are not walls, they are doorways with locks. They do not isolate, they protect. You must decide with full awareness where those locks should be placed. Maybe it means limiting communication. Maybe it means ending certain conversations. Maybe it means not sharing as deeply or as freely as before. Whatever form your boundary takes, it must come from a place of inner knowing, not fear. You are not punishing the other person, you are honoring your healing. You are saying, "This is what I need to feel safe again." When expressed with kindness and firmness, boundaries do not destroy relationships, they test them. The right people will respect them, the wrong people will resist them, and that too is part of the clarity boundaries provide. Some relationships may heal and grow stronger from this mutual understanding. Others may fade, unable to survive the weight of what was broken. But in either case, you remain in control of your peace. As you begin to reclaim that peace, Another deeper question arises. Is the person who broke your trust willing to make amends? Buddhism teaches us to balance compassion with discernment. Forgiveness is not granted to avoid conflict or appear virtuous. It must come from real change, both in the other and in yourself. So you must observe, not just their words, but their actions. Are they genuinely remorseful? Have they taken responsibility, not just offered apologies? Are they willing to do the hard, often uncomfortable work of rebuilding what they broke? You don't have to rush this evaluation. Time is your ally here. Real change reveals itself slowly. Someone truly sorry will not push you to forgive quickly. They will respect the distance, the boundaries, the process. They will seek to understand your pain, not justify their behavior. On the other hand, if they deflect, if they blame, if they demand forgiveness as a right rather than an offering, this too is clarity. You are not required to extend trust where it has been refused, the nourishment of truth. It is not cruel to protect your peace. It is wise. It is Buddhist in its very essence. Forgiveness, when offered blindly, becomes a weapon against your own healing. But when offered with wisdom, it becomes a balm. For you, for them, for the past itself. It tells the story, yes, harm was done, but transformation is possible. There is a moment in every journey of healing where the outside world fades and you're left facing only one question. Am I truly ready to forgive? Not because someone else expects it, not because forgiveness is the right thing to do, but because it feels aligned with your inner truth. Buddhism does not force forgiveness, it invites it. It whispers gently, reminding you that holding on to pain can weigh down the soul like stones in your pocket. But even so, you must be honest with yourself. You must ask, can I release this resentment? Am I ready to let go, not for them, but for me? You might find that the answer is not yet, and that is okay. Forgiveness is not a deadline. It is a door you open when your heart is ready, not when others come knocking. And sometimes you may find that forgiveness can coexist with separation. You may forgive and still choose not to trust again. You may release the burden of anger while walking away from the relationship. There is no contradiction in that. Forgiveness is not an invitation to be hurt again. It is simply a decision to stop letting someone else's betrayal occupy space in your spirit. When you reach this clarity, when your forgiveness is honest, unforced, and grounded in self-respect, you are not weak. You are powerful. You have reclaimed your narrative and chosen peace. Even so, peace can sometimes feel far away when we carry pain alone. That is why the teachings of Buddhism remind us of the value of Sangha, community. We are not meant to suffer in silence or carry the burden of broken trust all by ourselves. Seeking support is not weakness, it is wisdom. Whether from a trusted friend, a spiritual teacher, or a therapist, the presence of another compassionate soul can be profoundly healing. Sharing your story out loud releases its grip on your inner world. When someone listens without judgment, when they hold your emotions with care, it affirms your experience and helps you breathe easier. Sometimes a friend offers perspective you hadn't seen. Sometimes a therapist guides you to truths buried beneath years of habit. Sometimes just hearing someone say, "I understand," is enough to remind you that healing is possible. And it is. You are never alone in your pain. Countless others have walked the path of broken trust. And through sharing, through conversation, through connection, we discover the universal truth. Pain shared is pain halved, so do not hesitate to reach out. Lean into your community. Let them remind you of your strength when you forget it. Let them walk beside you, even for just a while, as you find your way back to wholeness. And along this path of restoration, one step stands quietly yet firmly, taking responsibility for your own actions and reactions. This is not about blaming yourself for what someone else did. It is about shining the light of awareness inward and asking, how did I respond? What did I contribute? What can I learn from this? Buddhism calls us to radical self-honesty, not to punish ourselves, but to evolve. In any relationship, no matter how one-sided the betrayal may seem, we are not without agency. Maybe we ignored warning signs. Maybe we stayed silent when we should have spoken. Maybe we allowed disrespect out of fear of conflict. These truths are not easy to face, but when we do, we step out of the victim narrative and into the role of the wise observer. This is where growth lives. And just as you take responsibility for past missteps, you also reclaim control over future ones. You begin to choose your reactions more mindfully. You recognize when emotions rise and pause before acting. You own your responses, your boundaries, your healing. This is the foundation of spiritual maturity. It is how you turn a painful chapter into a sacred teaching. You are not powerless. You never were. But even with this power, there may be days when anger tempts you, when revenge feels sweet and justified, when the fantasy of getting even plays again and again in your mind like a favorite song. These moments are human, they are real. But Buddhism offers a gentle caution. Acting on that revenge only deepens your suffering. It binds you not to justice, but to pain. It continues the cycle instead of breaking it. Seeking revenge might give you a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but it also stains your spirit with the same energy that hurt you in the first place. It turns you into a mirror of the very thing you wish to rise above. So instead, you choose the harder path, the nobler one. You let go, not to excuse the harm, not to pretend it didn't matter, but to say, I will not let your actions define mine. You choose compassion. You choose restraint. You choose peace, not out of weakness, but as an act of profound courage. And when the urge to lash out arises, you redirect that energy inward. You nurture yourself. You meditate. You breathe. You write. You cry. You heal. Revenge belongs to the world of illusions. Healing belongs to the path of awakening. You cannot walk both. In the quiet moments after pain has softened its grip, you begin to realize something essential, that you must now take care of yourself in ways no one else can. When trust is broken, the body tightens, the mind spins, and the heart aches. Stress and anxiety often become constant companions, but Buddhism teaches that the first act of healing is to return to the self, to cradle your own spirit in compassion. Self-care is not indulgence, it is repair, it is nourishment, it is survival. It is sitting with your breath in silence, allowing your mind to settle like a snow globe after the shaking stops. It is rolling out a yoga mat and letting your body stretch into stillness. It is walking through nature and letting the rustle of leaves soothe the noise within. It is nourishing your body with food that loves you back. It is writing in a journal, it is saying no when your soul whispers that it needs rest. Self-care means surrounding yourself with what is gentle, honest, and grounding. It is not a luxury reserved for perfect days. It is a lifeline, especially on the days when everything feels broken. You do not have to have it all figured out to begin. You only need to begin, slowly, kindly, with love. Because every time you care for yourself, you affirm that you are worth the effort, and you are. Always. And as you begin this journey inward, perhaps the most difficult truth you'll need to hold is this: healing takes time. There is no shortcut, no fast forward, no bypass. There is only the long, winding road through your own heart. Buddhism teaches impermanence, the truth that nothing lasts forever, not joy, not sorrow, not even the deep sting of betrayal. Your pain, as sharp and unbearable as it feels now, will soften. Your confusion will clear, the heaviness will lift. But it will not happen all at once. Healing is not linear. Some days you'll feel strong, clear, peaceful. Other days, memories will come crashing back and knock the wind out of you. That's okay. That is the rhythm of transformation. Be gentle with yourself on those hard days. Offer yourself the same kindness you would give to someone you love. Trust that progress is happening, even if you can't see it. Healing is not about returning to who you were before the betrayal. It is about becoming someone wiser, softer, stronger, because of it. You may not trust as easily again, but you will trust more wisely. You may not forget, but you will no longer ache. And as time carries you forward, you'll discover that the pain that once consumed you has now become part of your strength. A sacred scar that reminds you, you endured, you healed, you rose. Let that truth anchor you as you take each step. There is no need to rush. There is only the need to keep walking, slowly, steadily, lovingly, back to yourself. Conclusion: trust, once broken, shatters not just the connection with another, but the connection with ourselves. But through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, we discover that betrayal is not an ending. It is an invitation. An invitation to deepen our understanding, to reclaim our boundaries, to listen more closely to our intuition, and to become our own sanctuary. You do not need to rush toward forgiveness. You do not need to rebuild what was lost, but you do need to return to yourself with compassion, clarity, and courage. That is the real journey. And on that path, you will find not only healing, but a version of you who is wiser, kinder, and more resilient than you've ever known. May this path, however painful, lead you not to bitterness, but to awakening. And may you always remember, even in your most broken moment, you are still whole. When betrayal first arrives, it doesn't knock gently. It crashes in, unexpected, uninvited, like a storm tearing through your quiet world. But after the first wave of pain comes the choice. What will you do now? In Buddhism, one of the hardest but most important questions you must ask yourself is whether the person who hurt you is truly willing to make amends. Not everyone is, and not everyone deserves the return of your trust. Forgiveness, in Buddhist teaching, is not blind. It is not something handed out like a gift to those who are unready to receive it. It is thoughtful, conscious, and rooted in discernment. To begin healing, you must look with clear eyes at the person who caused you harm. Are they remorseful? Are their apologies sincere or merely convenient? Are they taking responsibility or shifting the blame? Actions speak with greater clarity than words ever can. If someone is truly sorry, you will see it in their consistent effort to change, not for your forgiveness, but because they are confronting their own conscience. It will not be performative. It will be quiet, humble, steady. Buddhism invites you to be compassionate but not naive, to offer space for others to grow but not at the expense of your own dignity. If someone continues to lie, gaslight, or deflect, that is not repentance, it is manipulation. And the hardest truth is sometimes the most necessary. Some people do not change, and some relationships must be left behind to preserve your peace. Forgiveness in its truest form is not about letting the other person off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of resentment. It is about saying, I will not allow this pain to define me any longer. But that forgiveness does not require you to welcome them back. It does not require you to give them access to your vulnerability again. It only asks that you no longer carry the weight of their wrongs. Whether or not someone deserves your trust again is a decision that must come from a place of wisdom, not guilt or obligation. And sometimes choosing yourself is the most spiritual decision of all. The moment you sit quietly with your pain, without trying to fix it, deny it, or rush it away, is the moment you begin to reclaim your power. One of the most transformative steps in Buddhism is radical honesty with yourself. When trust is broken, it's easy to focus entirely on the other person, what they did, how they lied, what they ruined. But there is a deeper, more important question that waits for you. Are you willing to forgive? Not because they deserve it, not because things can go back to how they were, but because your heart is tired of carrying the poison of anger and betrayal. Buddhism teaches that holding on to resentment is like holding hot coal in your hand with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. But here's the truth. Forgiveness is never forced. It is not something you owe anyone. You must be honest about your readiness. Can you envision a future where you let go of the resentment, even if you never get the apology you deserve? Can you release the expectation that justice will arrive wrapped in perfect words or acts of redemption? If not, that's okay. Healing is not a straight line. You are not weak for still hurting. You are human. And part of healing is allowing space for all of it. The grief, the anger, the longing for closure, the struggle to let go. Forgiveness is not a finish line you must race toward. It is a decision you make again and again. Slowly, when your heart is ready. You must ask yourself what you truly want. Not what others expect you to feel, not what social norms tell you should happen, but what your soul is actually ready for. If you're not ready to forgive, then give yourself that honesty. It is the most sacred gift you can offer yourself. You are not here to rush this journey. You are here to walk it in your own time, at your own pace. And when the moment does come, whether today or years from now. When forgiveness feels like release and not repression, you will know it, because your soul will breathe again. In those quiet, tender hours of reflection, when the world has gone still and your thoughts begin to soften, a truth emerges. No one heals alone. The last step in the journey of mending trust is perhaps the one most often overlooked: seeking support. Buddhism reminds us that we are not solitary islands, meant to weather every storm in isolation. We are interconnected beings, and healing happens not just within, but through the presence of others. When trust is broken, there is an impulse to retreat, to shut out the world, to shield your aching heart from more pain. But true healing comes when you allow yourself to be seen again, not by everyone, but by someone. A trusted friend who will sit with you in silence without rushing to fix you. The journey through broken trust is never linear. It twists and turns, rising with hope and falling with doubt. But what Buddhism gently teaches us is that the pain of betrayal, as deep as it may cut, is not the end. It is the beginning of a powerful inner transformation. When someone breaks your trust, it's natural to feel anger, confusion, and grief. But within this chaos lies an invitation, not to become harder, colder, or indifferent, but to become more awake, more present, and more compassionate toward yourself and the lessons life wants you to learn. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that suffering is an inseparable part of human existence. It doesn't promise a life free from betrayal or heartbreak, but it offers a path to meet those moments with clarity, dignity, and wisdom. You were never meant to be immune to pain, but you were always capable of rising through it. When you choose not to react impulsively, but to sit with your feelings, to observe them, to breathe through them, you reclaim your power. You realize that while you may not control what others do, you always have control over how you respond. There is something sacred in the space between being hurt and deciding what to do next. That space is your temple. It is there that self-awareness blooms. It is there you begin to understand that your worth was never defined by how others treated you. That someone's betrayal is a reflection of their choices, not a verdict on your value. And the most courageous thing you can do in the face of such pain is to turn inward and heal with grace. Forgiveness, too, is part of this process, but it is not a command. It is not a forced act done for the sake of appearing virtuous. It is a liberation you offer yourself when you're ready. When you realize that carrying anger and resentment only chains you to the past, forgiveness becomes not about excusing the harm, but about freeing yourself from it. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, nor does it mean welcoming someone back into your life unconditionally. It simply means choosing peace over bitterness, clarity over chaos. You are not weak for being hurt. You are not naive for having trusted. You are human, and trusting others is one of the most beautiful acts of faith we can offer. But now you know that trust must come with boundaries, that love must come with self-respect, that your peace must always be guarded like a sacred flame, tended carefully with intention and care. The person who broke your trust may never apologize. They may never acknowledge the pain they caused, but that doesn't mean your healing depends on them. In fact, your healing was never about them. It was always about you. It was always about how you choose to rise, about how you choose to hold your heart gently, even when it's bruised. Healing, as Buddhism teaches, is a path we walk, one mindful step at a time. There are days when you will feel like you've taken 10 steps forward, and others where it feels like you've slid backwards. That is okay. That is part of it. The only thing that matters is that you keep walking. Lean on those who love you, seek the presence of those who uplift you. Speak your truth without shame. Set boundaries with conviction and compassion. Surround yourself with peace, with music, with silence, with the simple joy of being alive. Remind yourself that no betrayal, no matter how painful, has the power to define your future unless you let it. You are not broken, you are breaking open, like the lotus, which blooms most beautifully in the mud. And in that blooming, you become something wiser, something softer, something stronger. You become the version of yourself that trusts again, but this time with discernment. That loves again, but this time without losing yourself. That walks this world not untouched by sorrow, but fully awake, fully grounded, and unshakably at peace. This is the gift that Buddhist wisdom offers. And so as you move forward from this place, carry this truth with you. You are not here to be broken by the world. You are here to become whole within it. One breath at a time, you've survived the storm. Now it's time to rebuild, stronger, wiser, and more beautifully than ever before. Zen, awakening.